It begins in a time so cold that the wind seemed to howl through the very bones of a simple mud and stick hut. The peasants huddled in silence, the thin walls rattling with draughts like rattling bones. Inside, a hearth sputtered ash and feeble warmth, the only flicker of hope against the freezing night outside. In this desolate world lived a young woman named Ida, with cheeks as pale as winter dawn and eyes that saw beyond the misery around her. Her family, father, mother, 2 younger brothers, and an aging grandmother who carried the gravity of winter's past in her hunched back. Ida's nights were nightmares made real. She lay on a bed of straw so thin that she felt the frozen dirt chill her spine. Sheets of hay squashed beneath her like dead leaves. Fleas danced among the rushes. Each itchy bite was a cruel reminder of the living decay beneath. Around her, the muffled snores of her kin mingled with the snorts of the goat tethered just beside her. The goat's breath warmed her scraping cheek. They clung together like fragments of warmth, bundled by necessity, each body part a life raft. Inside these skins and worn tunics made of coarse wool, Ida bore conflicting emotions. She dreaded sleep, knowing how the cold reached her bones. She longed for warmth, yet feared the suffocating haze of smoke that poured through the smoke hole above. She hated the smell of dung-laden walls, yet understood it was the only thing holding back the winter breath. Each night she rehearsed the same silent vow. Tomorrow, she must be cleverer. Now the hearth embers glowed weakly. The fire-banking ritual began. Father pulled the coals beneath ash like burying a fragile ember, praying that sleeping embers would survive until dawn. Ida watched, wondering if faith could hold against winter's cruelty. She inhaled slowly through her nose, breathing through damp shawls to warm the air, before it reached her lungs. Her mother murmured prayers to saints, ringing faint echoes off the smoky rafters. Deep inside, Ida wrestled with guilt. Should she steal more straw to better insulate the floor, risking fine and shame? Should she beg the neighbors for extra wood, exposing need? Letting the fire die could mean death. The logic was relentless. Survival demanded ingenuity, sacrifice, cunning. The story opens with the brutal cold, the shared body, heat of families and animals, and a young woman poised between hope and despair, already learning that in this winter-bound world life was born from ingenuity as much as blood. Night stretched onward, the temperature plunged further, and the hearth's flames shrank. To save warmth, the family had adopted shift sleeping. Ida's mother tended embers deep into the night, while Ida clasped her shivering brothers, wrapping them in an old cloak smeared with sheep grease and straw. Each breath created a little cloud of condensation in a cold draught. She marveled at the way heat moved through layers, from hearth to body, body to body, until the edges of the hut formed an icy boundary around them. The night passed in fragments. Ida awoke to a brush of goat hair, a fleck of ash drifting past her cheek. She had dreamed of her cheek frozen solid, a sculpted mask of ice. She pushed warmer coals into the fire pit, heart pounding, breath ragged. Her brothers cried softly, and grandmother mumbled prayers. Darkness receded only after hours of staring into the embers, coaxing life from glowing embers, like coaxing breath from wounded lungs. In the grey pre-dawn gloom, the fire survived. The family had banked it with just enough skill. Ida felt a hollow triumph, but survival came at a price. Morning brought stiff limbs, swollen joints, bodies aching where hope and cold had warred through the night. Their breath hung in the brittle air as they prepared a simmering stew of turnips, onions, barley, lard. The rich scent was strange luxury, heaviness in the stomach to fuel them, internal warmth for icy limbs. Ida felt both gratitude and quiet dread. The stew would sustain them, but only a few hours. Before long, she would have to venture beyond the safety of smoke, step out into the wind-scarred courtyard and scavenge firewood. She dreaded the walk, the gales whipping against her coarse cloak, carrying flecks of snow and bitterness. Yet inside, something flickered, a determination, sharpened by hunger and fear, that this winter would not break her. As dawn broke, the goat bleated, the livestock shifted. Neighbors' smoke curled over distant huts. Ida realized their village was a patchwork of fragile flames in the frozen dark. She discovered a grim solidarity. Every hearth mattered. Every ember could die. She found herself scheming small alliances. Help carry wood for neighbor in exchange for hay next time. Trade a loaf of bread for fire banking tips. The cold pressed them into community. Even in despair, Ida felt a budding hope born from shared struggle. Weeks turned to endless frozen nights. Eda's psychological burden deepened. Each night she lay haunted by guilt that she might not provide enough straw, enough layered wool, enough hot stew. Her brothers slept fitfully. Her grandmother's cough rattled in the quiet. The village had lost 2 elderly women already, hearths gone dark, neighbors too far to carry embers. Rumor said frostbite had claimed toes and fingers like silent reapers. One particularly bitter night, the wind tore through a gap in the wall that she had patched with moss. Carbon dioxide thickened inside. She coughed, waking Mother. Smoke filled the hut, and they dared not lift the goat's crate near the fire. One ember died under damp ash. Ida froze. She felt the heat retreating from the hearth, heard the snapping of wood stopping. Fear flooded her. Guilt slapped across her back. She stumbled to stoke the last glowing coal. She choked on smoke. Tears stung her eyes. In that moment, she felt utterly alone. Failure meant death for her kin. Mother arrived, petard ash aside, coaxed coals back to life. The warmth returned, faint and trembling. Ida wept silently, ashamed. The inner dialogue was relentless. I nearly killed us. I almost froze them. But then Mother's voice cut through. You're learning, child. That makes you stronger. It felt like salvation. Failure was part of mastery. Ida exhaled ragged relief. That night she crafted a heated stone ritual. She baked a flat river stone in coals until it glowed red, wrapped it in cloth and slipped it under straw beside grandmother's frail body. The heat seeped through, soothed aching joints, whispered life. It felt like magic, cold alchemy to defeat winter. Word spread among neighboring huts. Soon others borrowed her old stone and cloth method. In the darkness, Ida felt the weight of responsibility transform. She was no longer simply surviving. She was teaching. As hope flickered anew, guilt still coiled within her. Each innovation felt too late. Neighbors still died. Grandmother's cough deepened. The strain etched into her face. Sleepless nights, constant vigilance, constant prayer. Ida realized that survival wasn't a destination, it was perpetual action, mental burden, emotional resolve. The story's tension thickened. Could one young peasant girl carry not only her family's life, but the burden of winter as spring approached like a ghost? The ice cracked beneath weak sun. Walls let drips of thawing sweat slip through thatch. Hearth embers lasted longer by dawn. Hay-dried stew cooled less quickly, and yet grief laced the air. Grandmother lay silent by hearthstone now, pale and still. Eda sat beside her body, numb. The sun carved cold shapes across her grief-frozen face. Guilt strangled her. Had she done enough? Could she have saved the last ember of her grandmother's heart? Villagers gathered. Fires were offered. Straw donations accepted. A communal meal of the last salted pork and barley bread passed among trembling hands. In hushed tones, they called out prayers and gave thanks. The worst was fading. Eda stood by the hearth, face hollow, knowing the winter had carved scars deeper than frozen earth, on hearts, on bodies, on spirit. In that bitter final dawn, as the snow weakened and the goats streamed outside for the first time in months, Eda made a promise to remember every ember, every failure, every prayer, to carry her grandmother's dignity forward, to teach what she had learned. Fire banking, heated stones, quiet breathing, shared warmth, communal survival. She would bind the village closer next winter. She would patch the walls more thoroughly. She would bake more stones and share straw. She would weave hope from smoke and prayer. This winter had brimmed with tragedy. 2 huts were dark now. Fingers and toes were lost. Children had cried themselves frozen. But something remained. Communities bonded by sacrifice. Ingenuity birthed of desperation. Stories passed by hearthlight. And Ed, once uncertain and trembling, now stood as a steward of resilience. In her grief, she found purpose. To guard ember, to kindle community, to endure. The story closes not with comfort, but with unflinching hope. For even in the darkest night, when breath freezes and bodies huddle, the human heart can become an ember, fragile, persistent, capable of lighting dawn. This was Eda's legacy, an ember clan born from winter's cruelty, forging survival into history.